I'm with Fadi Ghattas, a Palestinian journalist and resident of Bethlehem, and we're talking about the devastating effects of the virus on Bethlehem. Now, Fadi, how big is the tourism industry in Bethlehem?
You know, the tourism in Bethlehem, it's the biggest sector in that city and in that governorate. In Bethlehem, we have more than 70 hotels. We have more than 5,000 hotel rooms. So we are speaking about a big number of hotels and room hotels. Most of the people in Bethlehem, they are depending on tourism for their income.
So of all the Palestinian cities, Bethlehem is the real one that's on tourism. You've got industry in other cities like Nablus and Jenin.
Yeah, you know, in the coronavirus period, we discovered that Bethlehem, without tourism, it's very weak. Because in Bethlehem, we don't have another thing for income, for economics, just we have tourism. If you go to Hebron, we have industry. If we go to Nablus, we have industry. If we go to Ramallah, they don't depend on tourism. But Bethlehem, in general, they depend on tourism. And before, we were speaking about a big number of poor people, unemployment. Now it's really more and more with that coronavirus that affect most of the Bethlehemites.
So how devastating has the virus been for Bethlehem?
You know, it was very bad from the 5th of March till now. It's really a catastrophe. We don't have economic, we don't have income for most of the people. Also, it affected the people in the psychology. And it affected a lot of problems also in the society inside the houses because the people are very stressed. And you know, we are living also in a big prison, so a coronavirus and a big prison, so it affected a lot of things and a lot of people.
Now, you've already mentioned that hotels rely on tourism. What sort of other businesses rely on tourism as well?
Everything in Bethlehem relies on tourism in Bethlehem. Imagine before 1 week I went to a dry clean to take my shirt or something. It was empty. There was no work in that dry clean. Why? Because the hotels are closed, so they don't send the hotel staff for the dry clean. And everything, the restaurant, it was affected because a lot of restaurants are a touristic restaurant. The souvenir shops, the factories, the people who are selling in the streets. All people, they were affected by the coronavirus, and now they don't have really income. There's no support. Maybe there was a very little support, but now we don't have anything for the people. And, you know, it's not intifada, it's coronavirus, so it's something in all over the world. When we had intifada, there was support for the Palestinian people from the European governments, from maybe the USA government at that time, from all over the world. But now we don't have any support for the Palestinian and Bethlehemite people because it's a world problem.
Also affected is the olive wood industry as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the olive wood, because we make from olive, we make the statues about Virgin Mary, Jesus, Saint Joseph. Maybe it was affected, yeah, because there's no market for selling these products locally. But maybe now they can send it outside, sell it outside for the USA, for Europe. Usually they take these stuff and send it for all over the world and sell it outside. But also it was affected, that industry, it was affected in Bethlehem. And as I said, everything in Bethlehem, it was affected by the coronavirus.
Has this put big pressure on families?
Yeah, sure, because, you know, when you don't have money, you have problems between people, a lot of stress inside the families. There are a lot of problems inside the houses. There are problems between the father and the children and the mother, and all the families were affected by that thing because the bad thing is to have no money, to have a bad economic. It affects all aspects of life. And also inside the houses, between the families, between the people inside each family.
I guess as well, dignity is very important for the Palestinian people. So when you've got no money, you're losing your dignity in some ways as well.
Yeah.
Are families being helped at all?
I think we didn't have enough support. At the beginning of the coronavirus, there was a little bit spreading boxes, having some food, but it wasn't for all families. It was once or twice maximum. But it's a problem that still till now. We started from the 5th of March till now. We are 7 months having coronavirus, and we're still having that thing, and we don't have airports, we don't have tourism, we don't have tourists coming to Bethlehem, and also the interior tourism. It's not good in Bethlehem because, as you know, they closed Israel, sometimes they close Palestine, so we don't have the people from, for example, the Palestinian territory inside the occupied territory, like from Jaffa, from Nazareth. We don't have all these people now because there's like a fear. The people who are living in Bethlehem, they fear from people who are coming from the occupied territories, and the same for the people who are living in the occupied territories. They fear from maybe the people who are coming from the West Bank, from the workers. So it's really a big problem because now all people fear from each other. They don't like to speak with each other very close. They don't like to work with each other. Now we have people working in houses, at houses. So everything, it's really weird now, and it's very complicated, very difficult.
Will some of these businesses that are built on tourism, will they not survive?
Yes, everything in Bethlehem depends on tourism. And if you speak about, as I said, about a dry clean, it depends on tourism. About restaurants, about souvenir shops. So most of the sectors, it was affected because it's related to tourism. Maybe the good jobs were the supermarkets, the bakeries. They had good money because all people, despite all difficulties and despite the corona, they need to eat. So they go to supermarkets and to bakeries. And it was good for them from money-wise. But for other sectors and other jobs, it was very bad.
But could we lose some of these businesses?
You know, coronavirus, it will be end. I think maybe in 2021, maximum at the beginning of the 2022. So we will have the tourism again in Bethlehem because Bethlehem really depends on tourism. Bethlehem without tourism is very weak.
Are some people changing their business, going from the tourist sector into something else just to survive?
Yeah, we saw a lot of shops, like souvenir shops or shops related to tourism. They changed their jobs or their shops to like selling vegetables, selling shoes or something different. It's not wrong at that period because people, they need money. If they don't have money, nobody will give them money. We are not like people living outside. If we are don't having a job or work, we can have money, for example, from the government, or we can have support. In Palestine, no, we don't have. If you don't have or if you don't work and get money, you will not have it from anybody.
Has there been demonstrations about the situation?
A lot of people, they were feeling so bad. But demonstrations, as big demonstrations, no. A lot of people, they said no for that situation. And the government, they tried to make their best for supporting people, for bringing some money and give it to people. But you know, when you have most of the people, they don't have work, so it will be difficult for spreading the money. And if you spread the money, every person or every family, they will have a very small amount of money. But now there is no money, there is no support.
Now, Nativity Church was closed for a time. Was this the first time in history that it was closed?
I think yes. On the 5th of March, the Church of the Nativity, for the first time in history, it was closed. Maybe it was closed for like a virus. I think in history it was closed for other reasons because in that land we had a lot of things. We had intifadas, and during the intifada it was closed. It wasn't open. The second intifada, you know, the Palestinian fighters, they were inside the church and the soldiers, they were outside, but it was closed. But if we speak about a virus, the first time that the church was closed, and we will not forget that date.
Now, there's been intifadas, there's been trouble. Is this the biggest crisis Bethlehem has had to face?
You know, we had very difficult periods. One of them, the coronavirus. One of them, the intifadas. And also the history of the Palestinian land. It was usually difficult. That land had a lot of occupations in all history. But it was different. Coronavirus, it was different for us. It was for the first time to have that thing, and it was very strange on people. The people, they were very afraid from the virus, thinking that a lot of people, they will lose their life because of the virus. Because of that, it was difficult. And at the beginning of the coronavirus, most of the people, they were at their houses. They didn't leave the houses in order to protect themselves.
Now, there's always been poverty here in Bethlehem, but has this left middle-class income people now in poverty?
I think most of the people now, they lost their jobs, So now we are speaking about a highest rate of unemployment and a highest rate of poverty. For example, before the coronavirus, okay, it was a good period, but also at that period we had a large number of poor people and very high rate of unemployment. It was like 22% the unemployment in Bethlehem. During the tourism and the good seasons, the unemployment and poverty become less and less. But now we don't have tourism, and as Bethlehemites, we depend on tourism. Because of that, we are speaking about a very huge number of poor people in Bethlehem. And in Bethlehem, we don't have anything else, just tourism. Before, there was like agriculture in Bethlehem because we had lands before, but now we don't have land in Bethlehem because of the occupation, the wall, the Area C. So we depend on tourism, and this is a good lesson for us because really we need to look for something else plus the tourism. We have to think like the Hebron people, the people in Nablus. We have to look for industry, to work in industry. But really, I'm looking very positive for the coming future because I think coronavirus, it will be end. Okay, maybe it needs another half year or a year, but after that, I think we will have a good number of tourists coming back to Bethlehem because really Bethlehem without tourism, it's very, very sad.
How has this affected you and your family?
In my family, for example, my father, he's working in a souvenir shop, so now he's not working. My sister, she works in a hotel, so she goes like once a week and she has half a salary. My mom, she works in a restaurant, and a lot of tourists were coming to that restaurant, so because of that she doesn't have the whole salary. From my side now, I'm working in the education sector, extra to the media sector. The education also, it was affected by the coronavirus, especially in Bethlehem, but now I'm working in Jerusalem. Sometimes when you don't go to the works, you don't have the salary. If you work for the whole month, you can have your salary. So it affected all people, all sectors in Bethlehem, and I hope that it will be end very soon and having the tourists back to Bethlehem.
So now, at the moment, Jerusalem is in lockdown, so are you able to go to Jerusalem to your work, or are you working from home here in Bethlehem?
No, I can't go to my work because now, as you know, we have closure in Israel, and also there was the Jewish feasts, and so because of that I can't go to Jerusalem, but I can work from my home. But when working from home, it's not the same as working in your office, but it's a very tough period. Because of that, we need to deal with all things, and I think every bad things will be end very soon, and going back to our work, having tourists, having life again in Bethlehem, because Bethlehem without tourists, like no life.
What's your prayer, finally, for Bethlehem?
I pray for all Bethlehemites to have a good future very soon, and that coronavirus to be end also very soon, and to celebrate Christmas. But this year, sure, we will not celebrate it very normal, but I think every bad thing will be end, and Bethlehem will be alive very soon.
Okay, Fadi, thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.